much, Mr. Chairman. Thanks to the witnesses for being here. Secretary Holland, if I could just start with you. I want to ask you about this memo from the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management that leaked a few weeks ago that suggests that your department, I'm looking at the memo now, that suggests that your department has been prioritizing a climate change agenda over energy security in this country. And I just want to get to the bottom of this and see if this is true. The memo concerns lease sale 258 in Alaska, the Cook Inlet project. And I just want to quote from the memo, which I have in front of me. If the Cook Inlet prospect would be developed, there would be additional government revenues and greater energy security for the state of Alaska. The memo goes on. Nevertheless, it's quite a transition. Nevertheless, because of the challenges facing the nation from climate change, BOEM is not, the Bureau of Ocean Energy Management is not recommending this option. And what the memo says is that the government ought to charge 18.75% in royalties, the maximum take allowed under the law, instead of a lower rate that would actually lead to more development. Now, did you agree with this analysis?
Senator, thank you for the question. And of course, royalty rates are such that because our public lands belong to every single American, that Americans should get a fair return on the land that that is used for this purpose.
But did you agree with charging the highest possible rate in order to discourage bids on the project because of climate change?
There is, the royalty rates are, I mean, that's not a surprise. That royalty rate is evident in other parts of the country. And I will say that with respect to our Principal Deputy Assistant Secretary, that is her department, that is her bureau, and I honestly, she takes care of that. She took care of that issue.
Well, but you're the secretary, so presumably you understand what's going on in your department. This is an extraordinary memo, and I just want to make sure that I understand what your position is. The memo says that a lower rate, the 16.67 rate to be precise, would have offered greater energy security. That's a quote from the memo. I have it. This is in public. Anybody can read this. Mm-hmm. That would have offered greater energy security. But your department recommended a significantly higher rate that you thought would likely lead perhaps to not developing, not moving forward with the project for the purpose of climate change. You didn't want this to go forward. You didn't want Alaska to have greater energy security because you said climate change. I'm just trying to understand, do you agree with that analysis? And you did indeed impose the higher rate. In fact, the lease sale 258 earned just one bid. So it looked like the strategy worked. I just want to know, do you agree with that we should trade off energy security for this country in favor of a climate change agenda?
Senator, what I can tell you is that the royalty rate for the leases was the most reasonable balance of environmental and economic factors for the public and was consistent with the IRA requirements. Additionally, of course, yes, we are in the midst of a terrible climate crisis, and it's our job to balance those things, to create a balance on our public lands, because our public lands belong to every single American.
Okay, that sounds like a yes to me. So you're telling me, yes, you think that charging more and trading off energy security, sacrificing energy security in favor of the climate change agenda is the right trade-off?
Senator, this royalty rate was consistent with the IRA requirement.
Well, yeah, it's the highest. It's consistent in the sense that you couldn't charge more than that. I mean, the memo lays this out. You selected the highest possible tax, essentially, in order to discourage development, and you succeeded in it. What's amazing is the memo, and listen, kudos to the person who wrote the memo, because they're very honest. They say we could have energy security or we could have the climate change agenda. Energy security needs to be sacrificed. Let's go with climate change. And you're telling me that you agree with that. I just have to say I think that is a disastrous trade-off, and I can't improve upon the comments offered by one senator who said, I'm appalled by the contents of this memo, which make crystal clear that this administration is literally putting their radical climate change agenda ahead of the needs of the people of Alaska and the United States. That was the chairman. Mm-hmm. He was absolutely right about that. Well said, Mr. Chairman. And I just want to register that I think that this decision to sacrifice our energy independence and energy security in favor of an agenda that is making us dependent on China, that is making us dependent on OPEC, that is making us dependent on every dictator around the world is a disastrous choice for the working people of this country. My time's expired. I have some more questions, but I'll give them to you for the record. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Cantwell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you to you and the ranking member for this hearing. Madam Secretary, great to see you. Thank you so much for coming to the Pacific Northwest, visiting Mount Rainier, the meeting with the Tulalip tribe, and really appreciate you visiting the Northwest. I'm glad that we have someone at the Department of Interior who believes in stewardship. Not sure everybody gets stewardship, but it's about leaving the place better for the next generation. And my colleague, Senator Collins, and I had asked the GAO how much was climate change costing the United States government, and it's in the billions of dollars. We've asked them to update that. I'm pretty sure they're going to come back and tell us it's costing us trillions of dollars. So I'm glad we're doing something about it. I wanted to ask you, though, about your work in the budget about Native American women who are experiencing violence and going missing. This week is the National Week of Action for Missing and Murdered Indigenous Women. This Friday is the National Day of Awareness. In my state, an organization did the report that showed how many women really are affected in the United States of America over this. This was several years ago and really helped us move forward. Our Attorney General has identified at least 113 unsolved cases in my state of Indigenous victims. And the Seattle Indian Health Board, which I mentioned, who issued that report on 71 urban cities, found that Seattle and Tacoma have some of the highest cases of missing and murdered Native women and girls in the country. So I know we've started to make change to address this crisis, but we need to do more. You helped create an initiative at the Department of Interior, which I appreciate, and a task force, but we need to make sure that the resources are there. Some of these communities are immense without much resource. One tribe in my state told me that they have only 2 law enforcement officers on duty to patrol a reservation of over 1 million acres. So I want to make sure that these cold cases don't go unanswered. I want to make sure that we are putting the resources together with this task force. So would tribal members in Washington state be better served if we were able to have federal resources in state devoted to missing and murdered Indigenous people in these cold cases?
Senator, thank you so much for your work on this and for highlighting it. It's incredibly important and a priority for us, and that's why I started the Missing and Murdered Unit at the department. So far, since its creation in 2021, it's investigated 681 missing and murdered persons cases, solved or closed 204 missing persons cases, and solved 7 murder cases. We have 32 of 63 of those positions filled. They're missing and murdered units across the country. I believe there's a dozen of them across the country. And so that is a good start. And of course, we would love to continue the staffing on that and make sure that they have the resources they need to solve these cases.
What about a unit in the state of Washington, giving it such a high?
Thank you so much. Yes, and we understand that that area has some of the highest missing rates, and certainly in small communities, you can imagine if a dozen people went missing at one time. We're so happy to work with you on this, and we'll take a look at what we have in the Pacific Northwest, but certainly you raise an important issue, and we're more than happy to continue to work with you.
Do you think we need more resources?
Oh, absolutely. As I mentioned, we have 32 of 63 positions now filled. They are planning to hire a supervisory agent in Washington State soon to add to the agent already on the ground. There's one agent there in the MMU sure, we could use more.
Thank you. I think that's the answer I was looking for, because clearly we don't have enough resources here. We're a target. You know, we know that there is a lot of trafficking of women. We know that I-5 and vast amounts of land can lead to lots of different issues. So we need more resources. We need everybody working together to try to tackle this issue. So thank you.